This is Part 4, Non-Medicare Health Plan Rating Methodology for the San Francisco Health Service System and Health Service Board. Current state of SFHSS health plan rating relationships across plans and tiers. This discussion provides information to the Health Service Board of the San Francisco Health Service System, as well as other interested parties, regarding how health plan rates are set for SFHSS health plans for the active employee and early retiree populations, also known as the non-Medicare populations. My name is Mike Clark, lead actuary for Aon's engagement with the Health Service Board and SFHSS. This presentation document was prepared and delivered in early April 2020. This discussion has emerged to address periodic questions raised by HSB members, as well as in public comments during HSB meetings, about the relationship of health plan rates across active employees versus early retirees within a plan, by dependent coverage tier, single, two-party, and family within a plan, and across health plans offered by SFHSS. So as we conclude our four-part presentation, this is the end state. 2020 monthly rates and contributions for the 5 health plans, and within those 3 dependent coverage tiers and 2 major population segments, active employees and early retirees, for SFHSS health plans. There are multiple employer contribution determination rules within each segment, as we discussed in Part 2. This particular chart illustrates for active employees in the City County of San Francisco employer, as well as those early retirees who earn the full employer contribution based on date of hire and/or length of service. Our first 3 parts covered how Aon, for self-funded and flex-funded plans, and the health plans for fully insured plans, perform rate-setting activities for next year's health plan rate recommendations, how total cost rates are then segmented into employer and member contributions for each of the 2 major population segments, active employees and retirees, and the historical perspective on SFHSS health plan rate relationships across health plans and dependent coverage tiers, given historical influence on current methodologies. This Part 4 will address the current state of SFHSS health plan rate relationships across the health plans and dependent coverage tiers. And as we close this 4th and final part, we'll add perspectives for the future on whether the HSB and SFHSS may want to pursue changes in current elements of non-Medicare health plan rating methodology. So let's begin. Part 4, current state of SFHSS health plan rating relationships across plans and tiers. For the most part, elements and rating relationships among the health plans and tiers discussed in Part 3, the historical perspective, have carried forward through the years into 2020 rating. But there have been 2 significant developments in SFHSS plan rating in recent years that have helped certain members in the UHC PPO City Plan achieve lower member contributions, which are highlighted in red on the next page. The first development is that for active employees and early retirees living in geographies where the Blue Shield and Kaiser plans are not available, there are now lower member contributions via the City Plan choice not available. And the second development for early retirees covering dependents is the execution of a 3-year migration of rate ratios for UHC PPO City Plan to match the Blue Shield tier ratios by the 2021 plan year. Still, differences in rate relationship philosophies continue into the 2020 rating among the 3 carriers and now 5 plans offered to SFHSS members. As alluded to on the prior page, this page illustrates the monthly health plan rates in the 2020 plan year, with emphasis in the blue shading and red text on the two developments. The top line shows the city plan choice not available, with lower rates for this plan relative to regular city plan for the active employees, and then that cascades into supporting lower contributions for all employees in city plan choice not available, as well as the retirees in city plan choice not available. And the second is the 3-year migration of the family tier rate ratios for early retirees for city plan and city plan choice not available, as illustrated in the middle of this page. But otherwise, most tenants in 2013 rating have remained into 2020 rating. The dollar portion of dependent rates for Kaiser remain the same between active employees and early retirees, with only modest differences for the Blue Shield plans due to application of rate increase percentages into active employees versus early retiree rates over time. And there is an artificially high rate ratio of employee and retiree only tier rates, so the early retiree versus the active employee rates in the Blue Shield plans at a 2.3 to 1 ratio versus that in the UHC City Plan PPO at a 1.3 to 1 ratio. This gives the perception that the Blue Shield early retiree plans are costing significantly more in actual cost than the UHC PPO plan, since the retiree-only total cost rates for the Blue Shield plans are much higher than the retiree-only total cost rate for the UHC PPO City Plan. However, this is being driven by historical rating methodologies cascading to the present. And the reality is this helps keep the early retiree member contributions lower for the Blue Shield plans versus the UHC PPO plan, because the actuarial difference portion of the city charter employer contribution formula that we reviewed in part 2 of our presentation is much higher for Blue Shield plans than for the UHC PPO city plan. So we'll look back and focus on the actuarial difference part of the city charter formula. As we discussed in part 2 of our presentation, the city charter employer contribution formula for retirees has 3 elements that produce the total dollar amount available from the city for its contributions towards a retiree's health plan coverage. The 10-county amount is determined by annual survey presented and approved by the Health Service Board every March. This amount is the same for all plans and dependent tiers. The actuarial difference is the difference between the early retiree only total cost rate and the active employee only total cost rate for each health plan. And the Prop E employer contribution is 50% of what remains after subtracting the 10-county amount and the actuarial difference amount from the total cost rate, where this calculation is performed for the retiree only tier and the retiree plus 1 tier, with the result on the retiree plus 1 tier also cascading to the retiree plus 2 or more tier. The actuarial difference portion of this formula varies widely in dollar amount from plan to plan, as seen in earlier tables and in the charts exhibited in part 2 of our presentation. This is because of 2 key variables: how total cost rates are set between active employees and early retirees, where the ratios and cost differentials between the early retiree only and active employee only rates vary significantly by plan, which directly influences the actuarial difference calculation. And Kaiser and Blue Shield active employees have much more of a normal risk pattern, whereas the UHC active employees are much higher in risk. So the actuarial difference comparison works against the early retiree and UHC city plan versus the early retirees and other plans. Many UHC PPO members have been helped by two recent actions to mitigate contribution increases for some. The city plan choice not available, where you can see the red highlighting in the table below, and the tier ratio adjustments for early retirees in the retiree plus one and retiree plus two or more tiers. However, the rating methodology differences applied to the Blue Shield and Kaiser plans versus the UHC PPO City plan results in a much higher early retiree only member contribution in regular City plan versus early retiree only contributions paid by members in other plans. So as we look forward at the conclusion of our non-Medicare rating methodology presentation, into the 2021 plan year, we suggest maintaining present state methodology and rating of SFHSS active employee and early retiree health plans, noting that 2021 will be the third and final year of the transition of UHC PPO City Plan early retiree, retiree plus one, and retiree plus two or more tier rate ratios to match those for the Blue Shield plans as approved by the Health Service Board at the May 2018 meeting. But as part of a planned request for proposal evaluation process for SFHSS in future years, AON will construct alternative rating methodology scenarios that include impacts to members and employers that aim to bring more consistency in rating methodology components across the active employee and early retiree health plans offered to SFHSS members. We will provide periodic updates to the Health Service Board upon the conclusion of the 2021 plan year rates and benefit cycle on scenario models, including potential member and employer impacts for possible change considerations in SFHSS health plan rating methodology components. So this concludes our four-part series on non-Medicare rating methodology for SFHSS.